I had always hoped that at some stage or other, the investment community would learn, right? And many things have changed, fundamentally changed. I mean, 10 years ago, I could not point to an Inspire, an implant in sleep apnea that, if you look at it, actually technologically not that fascinating, and everybody in the BCI world will just, throw up their hands in dismay at how simple and basic this technology is. All of my engineers will say, oh, that I can design and build in my sleep, right? But you know what? That company is now worth $4 billion. Where did it all start? It all started in a big medical device company in 1995, where it sat for 12 years without doing very much at all, then left it, and then had good people, many strokes of good luck, no doubt, and another 10 years, and it goes from hundreds of thousands of dollars of value to billions of dollars. Great story, great example. I can point to Nevro. I can point to NeuroPace. Frank does not know this, but in my fundraising pitch at the moment, I mention NeuroPace more often than anything else. And why? Because 10 years ago, if I'd gone, and I went out to some private investors, but if I'd gone out to the market at large, what was my story going to be? But the complete unknown. Today, I can mention Elon Musk, and that'll bring in some, either those that like him and think he's a hero, or those that hate him and want to compete with him. I can point to established medical device companies. I can point to the auditory sector. Before COVID hit, I would play this little game. I'd be in an airplane. Every time, I'd watch everybody, all of them come into the plane, and I would try to identify how many people would come onto the plane with that little button behind their ear to signify that they had a cochlear implant. And you know what? It started 4 years ago, hardly ever. Just before COVID hit, I was on a flight from Houston. 4 people came onto the plane with a cochlear implant. These are serious numbers now. These are millions of patients being positively affected. So I don't need to stand there and say, ooh, neuro will go the way of cardio. I can show concrete examples. I can show the cochlear implant market. I can show a sleep apnea implant. I can show Nevro. I can show all these neuromodulation implant companies. I can show NeuroPace in epilepsy and say more and more epilepsy labs are using it, more and more patient stories out there. So the science is changing. The applications are changing. The success stories are changing. These guys are currently going from a cardio-heavy field to more and more interest in the neuro field because it's dwarfing that space, right? Today's neurological disorders in the US healthcare system already outweighs the cardio space by 4 to 1 today.
You have a really kind of privileged perch looking out forward at what's going to happen in neurotechnology. And what do you think is going to happen in the 5 to 10 year time scale that people listening to this podcast might not realize is already underway? Paint us a picture of what we can expect.
I've always said that people vastly overestimate what they can achieve in a year and vastly underestimate what can be achieved over 5 or 10 years. And so I am potentially a hopeless optimist here, but I see actually a very bright future for us all. And I see that manifested in several different areas. For starters, I think the medical device world, it needs to feed a healthcare system, and I think we are going to be forced into it, whether we want it or not, a rethink of the healthcare system and how we spend dollars and where. And so that in and of itself will lead to a change and a drive towards more implantable solutions, more medical devices teamed up with pharma, with bioceuticals, with electroceuticals, and all the others to just improve it. So I see a development there, maybe not as fast as I would like to see it, but it will happen. I also feel that on the innovation side, we are going to see more and more of the examples of Inspire, things that just leapfrog because the funding is there and they find the right application and the product just makes a lot of, the technology makes a lot of sense and answers the need. And so with one Inspire, we will see another 3, 4, 5 like that. And I just hope, Matt, that, one of those is in our field and that it's you or that it's us or that it's someone else. And I'll happily take you along the ride. And finally, I hope and I do believe that we will see patients, and in our field specifically, Matt, of heavily disabled patients, of people who are paralyzed, of people who suffer from ALS and are locked in. I mean, we're now on patient number 27 that has had a fundamental change, not just in their life, but in what they were able to do, of moving a prosthetic arm, of moving their own arm, of being locked in and now communicating. They are not locked in anymore. You cannot define them as locked in anymore. That barrier has been broken by these phenomenal pioneers. And what follows pioneers is just a bigger wave. And so in 5 to 10 years, I don't know whether it's hundreds or it's thousands, but I am convinced there will be a large patient population who will be able to do things, who will have greater independence than they have today. And I think it'll be at a level that blows our mind 10 years in the past, our minds of today. And I'll look back on this podcast and I just hope that I was wrong, because it's even further ahead than that.